Okay, in this video, I'm going to go through my top 15 games of all time that I own. I must stress at this point, this is my personal list. This is not a list that I say, go out and buy these games, okay? This is my favourite games and the reasons why I like these top 15 games in my collection. It was very hard to do this list. I've got so many games that I really enjoy. If I don't really play a game that often, I get rid of it. And I have plenty of games up here, from party games, what I say, like things like Sheriff of Nottingham. I wouldn't call that my favourite game yet. And then things like Telestrations. Telestrations is probably my most played game I own. Yet it's not my favourite game. It's just a brilliant one for parties. So groups of people. Most people know Pictionary. Mix that in with Chinese Whispers and you got Telestrations. It's a fantastic game. Final Girl, if we talk about solo experiences, I've just really got into that recently. So sometimes it's the amount I've played of the game might make a difference. I've had some recent Kickstarters through. They can certainly jump into that list, but I haven't played them enough to warrant putting them in the list. But it is my list of what I really enjoy and the reasons why. I have tropes. The hobby side of board games and tabletop miniature games is a big part for me. Painting is a huge part. So I will tend to edge towards miniature games and big, epic miniature games as well. That's really a thing for me. I love a story. I love this idea that a board game can be an interactive story, effectively, that you're playing through and you're guiding these characters and events through your actions as a group or solo. So they're the two pillar stones that really make a game for me, is a narrative and miniatures. To be honest, if I'm being completely honest, they're my two favourite things. So expect to see games that follow those two ideas in my list. Now, that is not for everyone. Of course it's not. Some people don't play solo, but board games solo at all. Okay, which is very different to me. I play solo solo a lot because it's kind of taken over from video games for me. I'd much rather have these physical components and then go through these experiences. And then you can play it with other people, so you can play this one product with multiple people, just like video games, to be honest. So I love that about the hobby. I'm not including any tabletop miniature games. Okay, this is my gaming shed. Half of it is board games, half of it is tabletop miniature games. So that is another aspect of my hobby that I absolutely adore. From Lord of the Rings to Marvel Crisis Protocol, Shatterpoint, Star Wars Armada, Star Wars Legion, Blood Bowl, Kill Team, Moonstone, which is my latest, one of my favourite. Then the historical games like Black Seas and Test of Honor. There's just a plethora of tabletop miniature games that I really, really, really enjoy and play regularly. Every week I'm playing tabletop miniature games. But I'm playing board games a lot because I play that solo aspect to board games. And I highly recommend it. Don't think it's a weird thing. I mean, I think it's got a bit of a stigma to it in terms of, well, it's a bit lonely, that. But I think if you play board games solo, especially these big kind of more complex games, number one, you're learning the rules and you're learning how to play. So when you do come to bring it to a game group with players who've never played it before, you can teach them more confidently of how to play the game. Whereas if you're bringing your new game straight to the board game without playing it at all, then you're doing it from fresh. So you've got to either study it, which means you're literally watching the game being played instead of just having a go at playing the game, which I think is worse. So or you're studying a rule book, which, to be honest, I always find playing the game and kind of like figuring how the game plays with conjunction with the rule book tends to be the best way of learning. So do bear in mind, this is my list of what I really enjoy. You can get some hints. I'll talk about each game, and if that's something that you say, oh yeah, that's really cool, then that might be something that you might want to go forward to. Also note, I'm not just talking about games that you can get easily. A lot of these games will be Kickstarter. Okay, that's one thing I do is Kickstarter games. Okay, and I really enjoy, mainly because it's big narrative games or miniature games, which is what Kickstarter was really about. So there's going to be some Kickstarter games. Obviously, if you're getting those on the second market, they're going to have inflated prices. So it's going to cost a lot of money to get into it. So that could be a massive hurdle. Of course it can. So do bear that in mind. Some of these games may not even be in print anymore. So the only place you can get them is in the second-hand market. Okay, is in the second market. Depending on how popular the game is, depends on how much it might cost. So do bear that in mind as I go through this list. And I just wanted to stress that importantly. And that's the same for any YouTube channel's top 10 list. I mean, it's a personal thing, okay? You should hopefully know the person whose channel it is and kind of know what their interests and what they do. So that should tailor their top 10 list towards what you're thinking. And that's why there's such diversity between people's top 10 lists of games of all time. Yeah, there's going to be common ones throughout, but I always go with what do I really, really enjoy? What's the games I really enjoy in all aspects? And hobbying is a part of that for me, okay? I'm not one of those who will keep grey plastic for my miniature games. I try not to anyway. As I have an ever-increasing collection of miniature board games and now tabletop miniature games, my painting log has increased substantially. So, I get in session. I mean, Citadel Contrast paints, massive advocate for those. They're absolutely amazing for speeding up the process and giving really good results. But I still need to, I've still got a job, a full-time job. I still have a family, still slightly renovating a house. So I don't have a lot of time. So doing these videos and so forth, just showcasing what I really enjoy is the idea. So without further ado, let's stop me chatting and let's get on to my top 15 games of all time. Okay, so number 15, first one on the list, Street Fighter the Miniatures game. This is by Just Go Games, and it's a 2 to 6 player skirmish battler using the Street Fighter, mostly 2 miniature characters. Again, a Kickstarter from Just Go Games, developed and designed by Angry Joe and his team, the quite famous YouTuber. And I really love this game. It's a kind of rock, paper, scissors kind of thing going on where you're having your go, you're moving around this kind of 3D board. There is a 2D, like the game, board where you literally just got one dimension. And then you're choosing a card to attack or do a special, whatever it might be. As you do that, your opponent's going to choose from their cards if they want to block. So it does use dice in this game, which is really nice. So if they're attacking, you can block, or you can think, from your distance you're away and your character, I think you're going to do a strike, let's say. And if you've got a strike in your hand, you can try to counter. So you're doing this back and forth, doing these moves to try and play it. If you're wrong about the counter, the attack goes through undefended. Whereas if you just block it, you're rolling dice to attack and block. Punches are hit, shields are blocked, and then you've also got energy meter, which you're tracking on your tracker boards. You've got your ultra on the board as well, on the card sheet, and then you've got your character deck, as it were. Okay, and each deck is completely unique to that character. The art is amazing. The art in the game on the cards is amazing. It's all unique art for the different moves. the miniatures, probably the biggest strength of this game. The miniatures are pre-painted and assembled. They're like amiibos. It's the best way to think of them. Okay, so really detailed paint on them as well as having this kind of effect which you got, and then all sculpted bases. They're nice, big, chunky. I would liken them to amiibos, Nintendo amiibos, as what they are. Then you get cardboard 3D terrain. You get several maps, and it's just a really nice game. I've played it multiple player counts. I've even played it solo with a fan-made solo mode. Me being me, that's probably no surprise. Which is nice, which is really nice, but it really shines when you play I would say 2, 3 or 4 players. I've played it 6, I've played it 5 as well, and it does work. It definitely does work because it's really quick turns. You're not hanging on too much, but I would say 2, 3 or 4 are your best player counts for this game. The miniatures, as I said, absolutely sublime. You've got many of the characters, as you imagine, from the game. You've got different modes as well. You can do tag team. It's got boss fights, so you can have one player playing as a super powerful boss, and then the other players, the other 3 players playing as normal characters. So they've got decks for all characters. Got a little trophy as well, just in case you want to use it. It's just a really, really nice adaptation of Street Fighter. Mostly Street Fighter 2. You could get expansions for 3, 4, Alpha and all that stuff, but Street Fighter 2 is where my love of the game comes from, so that's what I chose. You're going to be drawing cards, you're going to be playing cards, as I say. You go through rounds, and as you go through those rounds, you're trying to defeat your opponent. You can also do a timing mechanism. It's got the bonus stage in there as well, the car, destroying the car, and mechanics for that. A really, really great fleshed out Street Fighter miniatures board game. I really enjoy it. I think you could argue it's a bit simple, but I would say because no card deck construction or anything like that, it's literally this is the deck of cards that you have. But with the idea of bluffing and guessing, I think that really helps to it. So Street Fighter, the miniature game, Just Go Games, my number 15. Number 14 is Super Fantasy Brawl from Mythic Games. So I would say this has dropped quite considerably in the recent years, and that's just because I'm not really playing it much anymore. Well, I think the reason for that is my increase in time with tabletop miniature games. I'm playing a much more tabletop miniature games now, which kind of has taken the place of this this great, simple to learn, hard to master, classic arena battle game. 2 players or 4 players. I've got in front of me the expansions for season 2, mainly because my my box season 1 is currently elsewhere. It's a really nice game. The characters are fantastic. The gameplay is with the card mechanics is brilliant. So you're using 3 colours of magic is the best way to think of it to do different abilities, and you can do 1 action of each colour per turn. But you may have defended. So if you did a defence card in your opponent's turn, you're going to have 1 less of those cores to use. Moving around arena boards again. So I can bring this up. So moving around an arena, you'll have statues as well, traps, and there's going to be objectives. So objectives will be placed out that the crowd are wanting you to do. As you move around and try and meet these objectives, get most area control in the blue, the red, the yellow zone, occupy your enemy's deployment zone, all these different objectives where you're trying to please the crowd to get these victory points. So you're constantly going for this this kind of idea. You take out your opponent, they're not permanently taken out, and then they go back to their base. You get a victory point. As soon as you get 5 victory points, you win. real simple. It plays so nice. It is a shame that I'm not playing it as much. I was playing it loads when it first came out, and the miniatures are absolutely phenomenal. I really enjoy painting them up, and they're really the first set of miniatures I really painted up. And a little bit of a spoiler, this is the first Mythic Games game on the list. It won't be the last. There's your spoiler. Again, the characters are really unique. They feel really good. You make a team of three of these champions, and then you mix together their 6 cards to make a 18 card deck, and then you're drawing from that deck, just like a deck game. It's got some really good mechanics: pushing, pulling, getting onto traps, pushing and pulling into different characters, doing extra damage. They have special abilities when they level up, when they take out one of your opponent's characters. It really nice game. So it definitely has to be in my top 15. But I would say has dropped considerably from being probably one of my, if not my favourite game that I own, to now 14th. I think I've got more plays of different games in now. Some more newer games have taken its place, and as I said, I think tabletop miniature games have really taken that itch. However, I think you can still pick this up. I think Simon have taken on it now, so it's no longer Mythic Games' IP. It's with Simon, and they may be producing new stuff, but you can pick up the core box at a relatively reasonable price. I think it's a brilliant thing just to get the core set. I think you get 6 or 9 characters with that. It might be 6, but then you can play that 2-player game, and you've got all the components you need to play the game. Super Fantasy Brawl, Mythic Games, my number 14. Okay, my number 13 is yet another Kickstarter. This is going to be quite a common theme for some of the games. But ISS Vanguard by Awaken Realms. Another board game, Mythic Games, I really like their games. Awaken Realms, I really like their games too. This has to go on the list. Now, I wouldn't call this an amazing game in terms of a game which you can play with friends, you can take to a board game group. This is an experience. This is an absolutely phenomenal experience. That's why it's not on my in my top 10, because I don't, even though I play it a fair bit, and I'm right next to finishing the first campaign. It's not easy to get into. You need a lot of time to get into it, but once you do, man, is it cool. It's really involved, it's really detailed, and you get really invested into this experience. So it's a massive narrative campaign game based on space exploration. I won't give away any spoilers in this, so I won't be able to talk about it too much, but effectively what you're doing is you've got a system maps, so you go around different systems in the galaxy, trying to uncover what's going on. You've got a logbook, okay, with all entries inside of here, but there is a phenomenal app which does it all for you, so you don't have to do any bookkeeping. I do it as well as that anyway. And then what you've got is you've got your ship book. This is kind of like your maintenance of your ship, going from upgrading your bridge, your objectives, your tech levels, any bridge upgrades to allow you to go further, to explore new things. And then you've got your ship facilities. And in this ring binder, you effectively got different things you can do in your turn. You can't do everything each turn, each time you come to a ship phase, but you have to pick and choose. So are you going to recruit more people? Are you going to develop research technologies? Are you going to do production technologies? Are you going to sort out the situations which are arising on your ship, or additional things as they go through? And then it's got some really nice mechanics which all use your crew. So you got crew cards effectively, and they're the ones you're going to send out on missions, but you also can use them to develop your research, your production, or train people or heal people, whatever it might be. And as you start to do these productions and these research, you start to unlock new tech, new items, new landers, which are landers are like the small ships you take down to the surface of planets. So that's what the hangar's for. So I've currently got 3 ships in my hangar. Then you've got lander mods that you use, and then it takes you through each stage of the game. So you don't really, you do need the rule book to kind of understand it to a point. But then once you've kind of know the rules, it takes you through step by step what you're doing for each of the missions. Then you'll have a mission effectively that will come about from your objectives, and then you fly to a particular system, and you might go and land onto a planet. This will be populated with locations. This will change as you progress through that mission. You may not be able to complete the objectives or the mission objectives which are out on the board, in which case you might have to do a quick escape out. You'll lose your characters. You get attached to them, especially the ones that you keep taking on missions as they level up. They can level up to level 3. Level 3 gives them more dice to be able to access at the higher levels, but also more cards in your hand, so they're just a lot more stronger. So you kind of want to go with one of your highest level characters, and maybe more of a rookie to bring along, and then try and level up that rookie as you go through the game. This map exploration, it plays really nice. You are basically just making decisions what you want to do. Do you want to move to an adjacent location? Things might happen for that. What are you trying to do? Tests that you use your dice for. Once you use your dice, they go to spent dice pool, and the only way to get them back is either you do a exert, which basically gets rid of one for this scenario, and then you refresh all your dice, refresh for 5 of your dice, or you do a rest action, which gets you half of your dice. So it's kind of like different decisions you have to make, and they always feel like meaningful decisions. Then you get potential threats. I'm going to call them threats. Don't want to spoil anything again. Threats that will come out, unique discoveries, and you really feel your crew, your ship, the story really progressing. It feels like a story narrative experience. I've really enjoyed this game. It does take time. You need time to play it. I've played it exclusively solo. And when you do solo, you have to take at least 2 characters. There are 4 available from security, science, recon, and engineering. And they all play slightly different, and it does depend on which person you bring along as well. But they can help each other as well, because you're going to have unique items and loadouts for each of them. It is very involved as a game, so if a game you don't want that much involved, especially narrative, you know, this is like Gloomhaven plus, as it were. Gloomhaven obviously is an invested game, especially with a group or whatever, or solo, and you're going through many scenarios. I prefer this type of game where you're more invested in the development of stuff going on, and everything's very unique in terms of each scenario. The planets are different. They have different atmospheres and conditions which can affect different things are going on as you go through the kind of narrative span of this book. I would highly recommend this if you just want, again, I'm sure it plays great multiplayer. If you've got more than one player, if you're playing more than solo, I'm sure it will play great. It's just I prefer these kind of games solo, because you can get really immersed. It's like an amazing book, an interactive book that you're getting into, and that's why I love ISS Vanguard. I'm expecting the expansion campaign to come through soon, so just need to finish off my campaign playthrough of this one, of the core, and then I can crack on with that one when it comes. So I'm looking forward to that and seeing how they change it up or how they have different things. But as I say, just about to finish this campaign now. I don't know how many hours I've played of it. It's probably in the range of 40, maybe 50 hours of playing the campaign. So, you know, a long time, but not as long as some other games. But I really enjoy this as an experience, a narrative experience. And it might give you, there are some miniatures, but they're kind of not relevant really for the game. That you've just got miniatures that you move around. They're nice enough, but that's not what this game's about. This game is about developing your ship, your characters and your story as you move through. And the dice are unique as they were. They have different skills, specific skills. So depending on red, green, and blue, you've got kind of military, I guess. Then you've got science, and then you've got exploration. So there are different types of skill tests. Some characters are more skilled than others, and you have to make those decisions. And you join events and everything else. Great game. I really do enjoy this one. I would definitely put this higher if I was just talking about a solo game. This would be higher if we're talking just about solo experiences. I think this is an amazing solo experience. So that's ISS Vanguard by Awakened Realms, number 13. Okay, my number 12 is Batman Gotham City Chronicles by Monolith Games. So I got this a few years back, and I've just been really impressed by the game. And it's been a bit of a hit as well with the board game group that I go to. So in Batman Gotham City Chronicles, you're playing in different scenarios. You've got several different maps, which are absolutely gorgeous. You choose some characters from a massive array of them. Again, I must stress again, this is a Kickstarter. So, you know, that is a barrier to start with. But, you know, this is my favourite games in my collection of all time. So, for example, I've got Batman here, a version of Batman, the Gotham Knight Batman model. And I've got Green Arrow. The way it works is you have your players going against one villain. Okay, the villain has their villain dashboard here, which has got a really nice, unique mechanic of how it works. When a hero goes, they spend cubes in their ready action. So they might get 2 come across. Then you can attack, you can move. You get a bit of free movement to start with. So you might move into here. And then you say, you know what, I want to roll 2 red dice. There are a lot of skill, and then you get hits. And then depending on their defense, depends on how much you get through. You might go, actually, as a villain, I'm going to spend one of my cubes to roll a defense dice. I'll block one of them, still it would be taken out, whatever it might be. So you've got to make these decisions, and there's lots of other... One of the negative points about this is it's not an easy game. There are a lot of rules linked to the iconography of the map. So it's knowing what all these symbols mean and remembering to use them. So Batman is really good in melee, okay? So he gets 1 automatic success. If he takes down one character and there's another character in his area, then multiple go onto them. He's got a counterattack, so if someone hits him, he can throw back 2 red dice back to them. He's really good at investigating. So there's going to be objectives in this game. It's really rich with its objectives. So you're going to get different things which enable you to do hacking or whatever it might be. You can use Batarang. So you're going to take bat gadgets with you. You've got items which, like Green Arrow's bow, which makes his shooting better. He's rolling red dice normally. This adds orange dice which can be re-rolled for each cube you put in. Okay, so really, really powerful characters and unique characters. They feel like the super heroes and the super villains as well. When it's the villain's turn to go, what they're going to do is choose which one of these they want to activate, from cheapest to more expensive. So let's say the Riddler is here. We're going to use the Riddler. So they put 1 across because it's in the first position. They take it away and they put it at the end and move everything down. Then they do the actions with that, and Riddler can move out. They can the enemies. Sorry, you probably can't even see what I'm doing. The enemies can effectively move around the board and they can interact, but they're interacting with all of those enemies. Okay, and then the heroes are going as well. You do hero phase, enemy phase until a certain round limit. You can take down the villains. They have a certain health pool. So Riddler's got 4, for example, with 2 innate defense. But has lots of cheeky shenanigans, the Riddler. Very good at interacting with things, turning on turn, but maybe doing something with the vat of poison there. You got the drums. It can be multiple different things. The roster of villains and heroes in this game is vast. It's really, really cool. You do need to play two players to 4 players in the base game. You can get an expansion that plays up to 5, 6. But there's really, really cool. One of the things I play this most with is the fan-made solo rules, which I have put on the channel before. Really, really nice set. Solo set rule set. It really plays well. You can play all the scenarios, but it triggers the villain dashboard for a thing. There are different modes as well. I don't have them. I literally have the core pledge, if you like. You can get another one of these boards, activation boards for the good guys, and you can do team versus team, which is pretty cool. But a really, really nice game, especially if you like DC and Batman. This is one of the best out there, in my opinion. There's a bit of a, as I say, the iconography and learning the characters takes some time. Also, line of sight and how shooting works on the boards is quite difficult. In the back of the book, it's got the elevations and everything else. But there are some really good web apps. Again, I think they're fan-made again, which you literally just press on an area and it shows you all the areas you can shoot. Okay, so that quickens things up. But there's iconography everywhere in this game. That's its negative point. So it's not an easy entry. But once you get the hang of it, and I basically just, when I'm introducing it to new people, I'll tell them what their character does. I know what the iconography is. Again, there's some cheat sheets, really handy cheat sheets. And the latest edition of this, the latest release of this, really smartened up the rule set and introduced a solo rule set in the game. So I think that's being released relatively soon, which will really help the game to thrive. But it is another Kickstarter. But I do point that out. But the miniatures are gorgeous. They're great fun to paint up. Contrast paints as always. And each character feels unique, and each scenario and villain feels unique. And I really, really appreciate that. It's got some really nice mechanics going on. It really does make you feel like those characters, and you've got some hard choices to make sometimes, which again I really like in a game. So that's Batman Gotham City Chronicles by Monolith Games. My number 12. Okay, my number 11 is going to be Memoir 44 by Days of Wonder. This, I've all got to say, is Richard Borg, and many people in the board game sphere will recognise that name. Memoir 44 is probably the most popular one I've done so far on my list. And it is not a Kickstarter, is the first thing. Now, I do have a lot of Memoir 44 content because of what I think of this game. So, in Memoir 44, you are a 2-player, 1 versus 1. One player typically playing the Allies and the other player playing the Axis. It is historical, so it has battle scenarios. And in the core box, you've got the kind of like D-Day landings and then a few operations that went from that point. You've got different units. You've got infantry and you've got tanks. You've got artillery in the core box, as it were. You can expand that further, definitely, by getting expansions. Then the way it works is effectively you have orders. So you have a big deck of order cards. Terrain does different things as well. And then you are going to... The board is split into thirds, if you like. The central third is larger than the other two, but you've got 3 distinct battles, arenas. And then you're going to play 1 card from your hand, which will determine how many units will activate in said section. Okay, in said section. There are some special cards as well, which do different things. And then effectively, you'll have for each unit, they can, for example, tanks can move 3, up to 3, and can attack 3 away. So 1, 2, 3, they're in line of sight. You could attack those tanks. If you're doing that, as I say, they'll attack with 3. You're going to roll 3 dice. And then quite simple, and this is what I would call this, is a very simple mechanics game. But you've got these little tiles which change up the map to represent the scenario you're playing. There is a ton of content on online. So this would actually just make them retreat 1 because of the flag. But the infantry symbol only does a wound to infantry. effectively, the number of miniatures on that hex is its wounds. So if I do take, if let's say I got three, some grenades and some tanks, like so, very lucky roll, and then it takes out that unit, that gives you one victory medal, okay? The scenario to denote how many victory medals you need. Sometimes you're capturing objectives, areas, whatever it might be. You might be trying to destroy specific units, but whenever you take down the unit completely, you get one of those medals. First person to get to the desired medals wins that scenario. It is not balanced. I think this is the first thing to point out. So don't go into this game thinking you're going to have a really balanced game, okay? For example, the first scenario, which is Pegasus Bridge, with the British commandos landing in on gliders, that is heavily weighted, I believe, to the Allies. So Allies, I think the win rate for Allies is about 70%. So you're not. It's not necessarily a balanced game. What it's really and what it really captures is a simplistic way to play, quick way to play a World War II theatre in Europe, for this one anyway, games of strategy games, arena games, skirmish games. You really feel the tanks and the different units and what they are, even though, you know, we're not talking about rolling numbers on dice or anything like that. It is literally, you've got a 50-50 chance of defeating an infantry unit, and you've got a 1 in 3 chance of taking down one of these, and you've got a 1 in 6 chance of taking down one of these artillery. It is literally as simple as that. So this unit can hit as hard as this unit. The difference is your units, the way they counter that in terms of make it a little bit more balanced, is that, for example, infantry unit can only move once and fire, or move twice and not fire. And when they fire, it depends how far away their target is. So if they're 3 away, you're only going to roll 1 dice, okay? Compared to the 3 that you're rolling for the tank. If they're 2 away, 2 dice. If they're adjacent to you, 3 dice. Also, tanks can overrun, so if they attack something adjacent to them and make them displace them, either by them fleeing or destroying the units, then they can follow up and do another attack. So tanks, they've thought about how they can differentiate between the units, because but keeping the simple dice mechanics. And it works so well. You're going to have a hand of cards of these command cards, and you're going to decide what you're going to be playing for each one. There are some expansions for the game. I would probably say most notably this Flight Plan, which introduced planes into the game. You can play those planes in the set scenarios in this one, which gives you additional scenarios to play, or you can just add them into any game you've got, okay? And depending on when that scenario was in the war will depend on who's got air superiority. But that gives you additional cards to play through and everything else. There's Winter War. You can play in the Eastern conflict against Russia and the Axis. And they all play very differently. They bring in new rules. There's a Breakthrough, which doubles up the board. So I've got these massive double-sized boards for Breakthrough, which makes these scenarios even bigger, more in depth. Longer, of course, but really keeps it rich. And then you've got Overlord, and Overlord is when you can play up to, I think it's 8 players on double width board. I've not played that yet. I've not played Overlord yet. But this is a really nice. I really like this game. The miniatures are really nice for their scale and their representation on the board. It really looks nice, and when you bring in the equipment pack as well, you've suddenly got all specialist unit miniatures, okay? So for someone who likes miniatures, and to make it a little bit more richer experience, the core game, really nice. You could argue a bit too simple, but when you get those expansions, and especially the equipment pack, you really increase the complexity of it. While keeping the same core base mechanics, which are really fluid and nice, but they increase different units with different rules, and it just makes it a little bit more richer, makes each scenario even more that different. Really, really nice game, Memoir 44. A game I would highly recommend if you're interested in the World War II theatre of war and those kind of games. Tactical strategy games. It's a really, really good one, and a nice one to play with, kind of like entry level. So it's not too complex. This is one that my dad really likes playing with me, so it's been great for that. He's a big World War II buff, so really enjoys that history and really interested in that history. And this game actually encompasses it pretty well. It does a pretty good job of trying to encompass those events that happened during the Second World War. So my number 11 from Days of Wonder is Memoir 44. Okay, so now we start the top 10. And coming in at number 10 is probably one of my most played games in terms of with the game group, as well as a bit solo as well. I've played this a ton, and it is one of the favourites. I'm denial about whether this should be a higher spot than 10th for the amount I do play it. But if you like D&D, and especially the character creation or the story of the character and how they evolve, then Call to Adventure by Brotherwise Games is a fantastic game. I did kickstart this one, however, you can buy it in retail quite easily. It's readily available. And what it is literally a journey of your character. So in the game, you are going to select an origin, a motivation, and a destiny, which is kind of like your stages through your character's life, as it were. You start off with that origin in Act 1, and then there's 3 acts to your journey, okay, to your adventure, as it were, your life's adventure. For each act, you're going to be taking on challenges or gaining traits and building up your character based on the 6 attributes linked to D&D: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. On a particular task, so for example, this is the academy, you're going to choose one of 2 things you're going to do at the academy. You can excel in your studies, or you can learn deep lessons. Depending on what you choose will depend on what you start to specialize in, because when you trying to take this challenge on in the academy, let's say I'm trying to excel in my studies, we look to see what runes I can use to help. So there's not dice to pass this, it's you throw runes. Really unique, love it. So for this one, which would require 4, I've got my 3 standard runes, which aren't very good. One side has got a 1 success, basically, so it's 50-50 on each rune of getting a single success. However, my character at the moment has 2 intelligence, so I'm going to grab 2 special intelligent runes, and I've also got 1 wisdom as well, so I can grab a wisdom rune. So now suddenly my chances of getting 4 are much heightened, because the specialist runes have 1 success or 2 successes. So then we pick up our runes and we attempt our challenge. We throw the runes, and it's so much fun. I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, easily do it, and then that would go into my story arc, and that would now start to give me specialist and more runes in specific tasks. As you go further into your different acts, the challenges get, of course, harder, but give you more bonuses. So in Act 2, there's quite a few that give you victory points, which at the end of the game, that's how you win, is the one with the most victory points. But I'll come to something else a bit later anyway. I really like the novel idea of throwing runes. It makes you feel more like you're playing D&D, to be honest, or what D&D should be for me. I love this idea of throwing runes. It's obviously less swingy. You've basically got 2 sides to each rune. You can start to become more corrupt, if you like, darker in the dark side, if by opting to spend XP on throwing dark runes, which again have 1 or 2 successes. But if you land that 2 successes, you're going to go more corrupt. But you've got the opposite to that, which can take you up to light side. You've got hero cards and anti-hero cards, which can help to bolster you or start to affect your opponents. By playing these hero and anti-hero cards, they give you one victory point at the end of the game if you've played them. So you're trying to play these hero cards all the time and anti-hero cards as well. You've also got story icons, so it's like set collection, depending on how your story evolves throughout the history. So you've got things like the scroll, which is all about learning and education. You've got nobility, which is the crown. You've got adventure, which is the mountain. You've got, there's not one here, but you've got a little mask to show kind of villainy. So there's loads of different aspects to it, but the way this game plays the best is by just not worrying too much about points and thinking about the story you want your character to go through. It is an optional addition that's in the rulebook that you can do, which is at the end of the game, you talk about your life story linked to the cards and the challenges you faced, the traits you picked up and what you did. This is, I would say this is a compulsory part of this game. It makes it so cool because you end up talking about everything you've gone through and the route you've taken through, from being an outlander to a lone warrior to potentially the blood of the dragon, okay? Yes, it'll tie on things, it'll try and force you to kind of take a particular route, especially your destiny, because this is where you get a lot of victory points. So that'll kind of tailor you towards a particular route to help you, so you're not just going completely random. And of course, how you specialise will determine what route you take as well. Do you want to go like a paragon? Do you want to go really high in terms of light and moral code? Or do you want to go down that corrupt route, which can be really bad if you're taken down, and other people can affect you on that track as well. It works really well. It works so well. There's loads of interaction, between the players, because some will go down the corrupt route, which directly affect other players. But even the hero cards can as well. You could do a test which your opponent wants to do, and if you pass it, you take that option away from them. So suddenly they change their route through their history. The art on the cards is absolutely amazing. It's one of the massive positives of this game. Absolutely beautiful art on the cards. Loads and loads of cards as well in that core game. There is a expansion which works on Name of the Wind by Ruthras. Again, just adding another mechanic, but more challenges linked to that lore of that board game, or of that book, sorry. It's a really unique system, and now I've played Role Player, which is a real, I guess the go-to character creation, D&D character creation board game. I really like Role Player. I thought it was really good. I don't own it. I'm denied about owning Role Player, but then I got this, and this has overtaken it. I much prefer to play Call to Adventure, because you are literally going through your story. This is the bit I love, the narrative part. You'll probably notice a bit of a theme in my games, in my top 15 games. They're either miniature games or narrative games. There's a lot of those in this list. That's what I really personally enjoy in terms of board games. There's adversaries as well. There's a solo mode in it as well, which gives it extra bonuses for me, enables me to play it even more. But really fantastic game. Some unique ideas, especially the rune throwing. I think it's such a cool idea. There's XP. You can use XP for stuff. It's worth victory points at the end of the game, but you can also use it for different things as well. And just some really nice mechanics, and it has got that interaction across the table as well, which again I really like, and especially when you go through your characters' stories and you hear each other's. It's such a nice part and finish to this game. So, and you notice played quite a bit. This is Call to Adventure by Brotherwise Games. Highly recommended if you like that kind of character creation, D&D fantasy, high fantasy kind of game. Absolutely superb. Number 10. Okay, my number 9, and something very special for me is Star Wars Imperial Assault by Fantasy Flight Games. This is the game which really got me into board games, and especially miniature board games. It's 2 games in one, really, as it says on the box. It's a game of legendary Star Wars adventure and tactical miniature combat for 2 to 5 players. So you can play it as a story. They're story missions, okay, where you're playing through a campaign. One player is the Empire, or the baddies, if you like, and then the other players are playing as characters from the Rebellion. Now, they aren't known characters. The known characters are in the game, so all of your classics are in the game, but they are as kind of like allies or submissions and things like that. So, how this plays, it's played on a square kind of jigsaw tiled tiles, as it were, with squares on them. And you've got movement value, your speed, where you're moving around, your shooting with weapons. I haven't actually got the weapons out, but effectively you've got cards that are your items and weapons. And then you're rolling certain dice from ones that have got surges, loads of surges, so do special abilities, to dice which have no range, but do a lot of hits. Then you've got defense dice, 2 different ones of those, your standard defense dice, and then your kind of like a lot less blocks on this one, but they've got dodge on it. You're rolling your dice, trying to get your hits, trying to get the range with the different dice. So your blue dice are like long range, green dice are mid range but good damage output. So these are probably your best dice. Yellow have short range but a lot of surges. Red have no range but a lot of hits. So you're deciding what your character loadout is. So Diala, who is our Jedi, effective Haunted Exile, she's really good with melee. And then you've got Fen here, who's really good at shooting, so at distance. So you're probably going to have Fen at the back. You've got Gideon, who is effectively a support character. And then and they've all got special abilities as well. They've got it's using strain and health as a resource in this game. All the while your Empire's got their own character cards that they are activating, and it goes 1-1 activation, 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 activation. Until everything is activated in the round. The Empire player will have the campaign book with secret things that will happen. So when the heroes trigger something like opening a door, something's bound to happen. If they're going to be trying to hit objectives, and that can change all the time. The villains are typically trying to wound the characters. So they've got a healthy side and a wounded side. So they're not out of the game until they've been kind of like taken down their health twice. But that's what the Empire's trying to do. It's trying to take them down. This game really feels Star Warsy to me. Star Wars for me is about the rebels trying to do those little skirmish missions, which we don't see much of in the films, to be honest. We see a bit of it, but it's mostly about the characters, of course. But this game really makes you feel like you're part of the rebellion. They're kind of like Cassian Andor, that kind of idea that's trying to infiltrate the Empire for different ways. I love this game. This is a lovely game. I've played it with multiple times. I've got all of the expansions, so all of the settings, and that's the way the expansions work. So you've got like a Hoth, you've got Tatooine, Jabba's palace. You've got the Heart of the Empire, which is Coruscant, and then new characters come with each of those, and new campaigns. Then the other side of it, which is no longer supported by Fantasy Flight, to be honest, but I did play some tournaments with the battle game. So it's a skirmish battle game where you have points for the characters, shown up here, and then you effectively, you've got... Whenever you get a character card, they have a campaign. They typically will have a campaign version, and then a skirmish version. So a Diala, that's the campaign one, of course, and then it's got a card like this for its skirmish one. So you can play these skirmish games where you have points, and then you have skirmish battle objectives. You make the map, and then so it's really, really rich as a tactical miniatures game as well, which again really lent. This was one of the main reasons why I got into tabletop miniature skirmish games. Was because of this game. If you like Star Wars and you like the adventure, playing it and so forth, it's also got a solo version. So Fantasy Flight released an app, so you can play through the app, or you could use Redjack's solo version, which I've used. I've got some videos on the channel actually which go through how to play with that. So you can play the entire campaign solo, which is awesome. Really, really rich, dripping with theme. The only thing that I would say, the only negative point about it from some players that have played it is it's the unknown factor of what's going to happen and what's going to come out in that scenario. So if they take too long, they might be really ruined. Or if they open a certain door and haven't got many activations left, the Empire player might literally spawn a ton of stuff, which makes it extremely hard for the players. So it's a really tough game for the players, but I think that balances it, and that's true to Star Wars. I mean, it was really, really hard for the heroes, okay, for the rebels. It was overwhelming odds against them. So this game, I believe, captures it really well. The miniatures are really great. That, you know, for the time when it came out, they were definitely up there. I mean, obviously nowadays we've got some phenomenal detail in miniatures. So this is a little bit behind that. I mean, if we look at Star Wars Shatterpoint, which is the latest Star Wars miniature game, you can see kind of the difference between the detail of the miniatures. But they are good. They are good. Don't get me wrong. The miniatures in this are good quality. As you can see, I'm painting these up as always. A really nice game. It really feels Star Wars. I was very tempted to put Star Wars Rebellion onto this list. It was very close to being on the list. If you want a Star Wars game in a box, that's Star Wars Rebellion. That really encompasses everything Star Wars. But this makes me feel like I am actually a rebel hero going on these little skirmishes and trying to upset the plans of the Empire and sabotage, as it were. A beautiful game. And also in the campaign, you level up your characters. So you're getting XP, you're getting credits, you can buy new items and weapons, you can upgrade your characters with new abilities. A really, really rich game. It does require a commitment in time. Again, you know, games go on for about 2 hours, I would say, for a session. So you really gonna that ties into like 12 sessions. So yeah, that's going to build up in time. So it does take a reasonable amount of time, but massive fan of this game. If you like Star Wars at all, you need to check it out. I really think you need to check it out. And it is my favourite Star Wars board game. Okay, I have Star Wars tabletop miniature games, a lot of them, but as a board game, this is my favourite. I think it's a fantastic game, and it really does encompass that Star Wars feel. So, my number 9, Imperial Assault by Fantasy Flight Games. Now we come to my number 8, which is Black Rose Wars by Ludus Magnus Studios. This is a 2 to 4 player, well, it's solo as well. So 1 to 4 player mage battle arena game. You've got the Black Rose Wars, the Black Rose rooms here out on the board as hex represented by hexes. You'll have, I haven't got some of the components unfortunately, so bear with us, but I can explain it. You're effectively using spells to try and win the favour of the Black Rose and get the most victory points. You are playing against the Black Rose rooms themselves, the Black Rose themselves. Okay, so there's going to be events taking place from over here. You've got quests that you're trying to trigger, but effectively you'll be creating a grimoire, a kind of like a book, a spell book, if you like. So there are 8. I think there's 8 or 6 schools of magic in the core game. However, being another Kickstarter, the stretch goals are in this massive box, which brought about, I think there's something like 20 or different schools of magic that you can choose from. You're only ever going to play with, as I say, I think it's 8 schools of magic in any one game, but you can mix and match as that plays. The different schools of magic play differently. You can do different things. So there's like illusion, there's destruction, transmutation, illusion. all of this stuff, all these different types of schools of magic that play differently, but you can chop and change your character. So Nero, who's this character over here, is predominantly destruction. They've got personal spells which go into your spell book, your grimoire, as it were. Okay, and then you're at the start of each turn, you're going to be drawing from the library, which will contain all the cards from the 8 different schools of magic, and you'll choose 4 of those. Okay, so you might choose these 4. So this is like traps, and this is kind of like damage, as it were. Then you're going to choose 2 of those to put into your hand. You will have also drawn 2 cards from your grimoire, and then suddenly you've got your hand to play with. And then you're going to plan. We'll go to the planning phase, which is when you'll plan what cards you will play into your turn. So this is what this is for. You can play up to 3 spells here, which have to go in that order. And then you've got a quick spell, which can be played at any time. So what you'll do is you'll decide what to plan, and you'll put them all face down. They've also got 2 sides, so the orientation does matter. And effectively it says here, the active side will be the one on the bottom. So if you want to play Demon's Howl, you'll make sure that goes where it says active side. You'll then play out your cards, ready for that turn. You'll also have some standard action, 2 standard actions as well, which you can use. What you're going to do is you're going to go round the Black Rose arena, doing different things. So you could be, I might go, I'm going to cast this spell, in which case it's this one here. So you would flip it like this, and then do the thing it says, okay? And the spells can be different types, different elements, and different targets, and then it literally says what it does. Stability is a big thing in this game. So you're going to be destroying rooms as you go through. I'm just going to use these black cubes to represent it. So this has got an instability there. So I cast it from this room, I'll put an instability here. Why that's important is because once the last space has been occupied, that room is destroyed. The player with the most of their cubes onto there gets the token, the destroyed room token. That's victory points at the end of the game. So that could trigger something different. Once that's played, you then move on to your second action. You can do up to 2 actions on a turn before it goes on to the next player. And you can do standard actions, which is move up to 2 and activate a room, or punch something, so hit something and activate that room. So you'll go around doing this on each turn. Then evocations, so you'll have like the mage's turn, and then you have evocations turn. As you take damage, the player who damaged you puts their cubes on your damage track, and as soon as you hit your limit, you are effectively taken out. You go back to your home room, and you give a token, a trophy token, to your opponent. Trophies are worth extra victory points at the end of the game, and they give you victory points when you do take them out. So the one who did the most damage will get the most victory points, so like 4 power points, I think they're called, as you go up the track. Again, I don't have the tokens for this, but you'll have your individual token as you go up. There's 3 phases. So you start in crescent moon phase, then it goes into half moon phase as soon as someone gets to 6 victory points, if you like. Then when the first person to get to 18, and that includes the Black Rose, it turns into the full moon, and they get progressively more victory points. The quests get harder, and the events get a little bit more tricky. Then as soon as someone hits 30, that triggers the end game. And then you get any remaining trophy, destroyed rooms, points, all the rest of it as we go through. There is some really cool forgotten spells. These are like uber spells in this game, but it feels so satisfying, this game. When you're hitting your opponent, it's a very mean game. That's the only thing I would say. So if a competitive game is not something you want, this is probably not the game for you. I love the competitive element and the kind of the meanness of this game. It really makes you feel like you are mage, literally destroying stuff, people, rooms. You've got with the stretch goals, it came with a ton more characters, evocations. So evocations are basically spells which bring about like extra miniatures. You've got a load more new miniatures, and you've got some beastie miniatures as well. Like for example, Infamy a Creep, which is just an absolute monster of a miniature. It goes around destroying everything. You can even turn into a dragon. Okay, this elevates it completely. You've also got specific narrative stories, I suppose you can call them, or specific scenarios that you can play in this game as well. As well as a ton more schools of magic, as I said, that you can mix all up with. A load more mages to, again, mix it all up. They're all kind of, you can also play with an asymmetric side for each mage, so they trigger back up rather than just having the standard hand size, 2 movement, 2 damage, which all the mages have as standard. But then you can go asymmetric, so some are better at literally just physical damage. Some are better at having more cards in their hands, so you've got more options in your turn. Some can move further, and it's such a nice game. Again, a real popular one in terms of the game group. It's not a small game, it's not a short game. So expect to play a game of Black Rose Wars with 4 players, taking about 4 hours, I would say it would take. But it's so good. The feeling of casting the spells, dealing the damage, going against your opponents is so good in this game. And with the variability of all the schools of magic, because again, you don't have to stick to a single school of magic. You can just plaster all different types of magic together, and then you're randomly drawing those, obviously, from your deck. But what you're choosing is going into your hand, so you'll be able to play it that round. That's really cool. The Forgotten Spells, a really nice element to it. What they basically do, as I said, they're really, really powerful spells, except for when you've used it, it's gone out of the game. It's not discarded into your memories, as it's called, the discard pile, which gets shuffled up once you've gone past your grimoire. And there are certain room abilities, so you're triggering rooms. They have special abilities that allow you to do different things. So the Black Rose room in the middle, that basically allows you to draw a Forgotten Spell, but it's going to cost you 3 cards from your hand on the activation. You've got Throne Room, which changes first player. You've got rooms that can bring out evocations. You've got rooms which can just pure damage people. You've got rooms which allow you to draw more cards. You get rooms which allow you to draw different quests. So it really, you've got all this mitigation going on. No dice rolling, absolutely 0 dice rolling in this. You can, but what's lovely about this, one of the types of spells is a trap spell. So a Ghost Assassin, for example, when you cast this spell, you don't reveal it. You literally put a little token on it saying that this trap is now triggered. So it's up to, and the triggers can be very different things. Maybe someone attacks you. Maybe someone goes into a specific coloured room. Maybe someone gets closer to you. Lots of different triggers, and that adds a variability to the whole game. It's beautiful. Love this game. While you're trying to hit secret objectives as well, which typically are going to specific rooms and activating them. That's all that the quests typically are, which is nice and easy. It keeps it simple. These are all worth these power points or these victory points as you go through the game. The Black Rose room, is not available until you get to Half Moon Face, until someone gets 6 victory points. So again, they've got some really good balance tweaks in this game. I really love this game. I think for a arena battler game, this I prefer this to Super Fantasy Brawl. Super Fantasy Brawl is much quicker, so you can get more games in. It's much snappier and sharper, but this feels so good. If you like competitive games, and I must put an asterisk to this, you must like quite mean games. It is very mean. You are not going to make friends through this game, but for that competitive spirit of a game, it's fantastic. So that's my number 8, which is Black Rose Wars by Ludus Magnus Studios. And by the way, as you might have seen from my channel, I've got their most recent game, Nova Aetus Renaissance. This is based in Nova Aetus. And again, I've got even more Black Rose content now with Nova Aetus Renaissance. That's given me more Black Rose content to play with. Awesome. So, number 8. Okay, my number 7 board game of all time in my collection is Nemesis by Awakened Realms. This is Alien in a box. It's not got the IP, but my god, it is Alien, and it is done so well. The way they've designed this game, the way it feels is just like the film. It's so good. So the idea is it's a semi co-op game in its best form. That's how I'd always do it. There is a way you can do it so it's full co-op. So there isn't any traitor kind of mechanic going on. But effectively, what you're going to do is you've come onto a ship, okay, that's Nostradamus, pretty much, that things are going on, and you're not really sure what's kind of going on with the ship. You're exploring around, you're trying to get to Earth, so you've got the cockpit, which got secret coordinates, and this is the beauty of this game, the secret information. Now, you've only really got time for one of you to go and check it, or maybe two of you could go and check it. You need to go round to the different rooms and start to meet your own personal objectives. So at the start of the game, you'll be dished one corporate and one personal objective. So the personal ones are quite nice, okay? They are, they're kind of like very co-op style objectives in the most part. The corporate ones can be really nasty. Things like player 4 must not survive the game, or whatever. You know, it's really mean things that can happen. And you start the game with both of these objectives, and then you start on with you wake up in the hibernation room, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. So you've got to figure out, are the engines working or are they not working? You've got to get at least 2 of those working. And you've got to send it to Earth. That's the general objective for everyone in the game. However, your objective might change that. So this one, for example, is best friends forever. You and at least one other character must survive. A nice co-op objective. This one is send the signal, and intruder Karkness weakness must be discovered. So again, to be fair, that corporate one is actually quite nice. But there are some meaner ones or some specific objectives, like the ship must go to Mars as objective could be one. So in which case, you want to be going to the cockpit and doing the action, which is one of the actions of that room is to check the card. And then you can say, yeah, we're going to B, which is Mars, when it's actually C. And do the players trust you? There's a lot of doubt seeded in this game, especially when things start to hit the fan. So you're going around, and when you move, you're going to use your cards as your resource. Okay, so you've got a deck of 10 cards. There are some the same cards with some of the cards in the deck, like searching, repairing and things like that. But then you also have your own specific ones, like blocking access for the scientists, computer skills, intranet. So there are some specific ones for the scientists. So we've got the scientist here. We've got the scout here. She's got some of her own specific ones, like scavenging, reconnaissance, things like that. But you've got some basic actions like movement, shoot, melee attack, pick up a heavy object, trade, or craft an item. You can craft items in this game. You're going to go around picking up items, one of 3 different colours. So you've got green, red, or yellow. And then you've got these rooms which are white, which you can basically access any of those items. So you're going to be gaining items. You can craft with those different items depending on what the types are. You can carry a left hand and a right hand slot. You might get injured, in which case that might change. And effectively, you'll have a hand of 5 cards. From that 5 cards, you'll decide what to do in your turn. And you can do up to 2 actions on your turn, and it passes to the next player. They do 2 actions, and you keep going around until everyone's passed. It's really, really eerie to start with. You're kind of just making your way around, but as you move, you will roll a danger dice, okay, which is a D10 with different things. This one's pretty bad to roll to start with. That puts noise. So then you start to make noise. Noise is not a good thing. Noise is what brings the aliens about, okay? So he's done that. Okay, that's fair enough. Gone to that room. He's got a canteen. You can pick up you can search. So if you've got the search card, which you do, you can spend that search card. This will have one of these tokens on it, which will have a number and an effect. The number tells you how many items are in the room. So you notice around the outside are numbers, and you've got a little arrow. So that's 3, let's say. So it's on 3. I do a search, goes down to 2. Grab 2 cards out of the green deck and choose 1. And that's now my item, okay? And I've used that search action. If I want to move, that doesn't cause noise. But if I want to explore one of these rooms, I say I'm going to move. So I discard a card, and I'm going to move down this one. Let's say that's not there. Oh, let's say that's there. The first thing you do is you reveal this. It tells you how many items in the room and what happens. This is going to slime. We found the generator. So we put the generator to 3. And we slime ourselves, okay? So we are now slime. That makes us harder. Basically, that makes it harder to move around quietly. And some events might affect you for that. So you come into here, and it has an ability, okay? It tells you what it does, but you've also got like a cheat sheet card or page, if you like, which tells you what each of the rooms actually does, so you can kind of figure out what to do. This one, for example, could be really mean because it's initiate or stop a self-destruct sequence. So here is the self-destruct sequence. So if you get to the generator and you spend 2 cards, which is the cost, and you activate this, this starts the countdown from 6 turns downwards. Now, someone else, they go suddenly, oh my word, or they've just started the self-destruct sequence. This is going to blow everything up. You would typically do this if you need to escape the ship, because you can survive by going back to sleep with it going back to Earth, or whatever the location is, or going into an escape pod and then jettisoning off before people can come in with you. Okay, now this is a room that attaches to this. It's really, really cool. So you might activate this when other people are on the other side of the room. You go towards, then you go to the room, let's say the next room is, oh, there we go. For example, this next room over here is the evacuation section B, which is over here. So that suddenly I try to enter an escape pod. Cool, right. So then we go into the escape pod. And now we know at the end of this round, we're going to fly off. We're nice and safe, as long as I've met my objectives, right? But you might have already set this off. And as soon as it goes past round 4 and goes into round 3, these all become unlocked. Emergency AirPods. But you can no longer stop the self-destruct mechanism, okay? Because it's in the orange zone. So the ship is going to blow up with everything on it at that round. So that's just an example of one of the rooms, okay? But to move into this room, you need to roll the dice. I get a 1. In this case, it'll be fine. But let's say I got a 3. If I got a 3, that's already got a noise token on it. This is what introduces an intruder. And this is really cool because the start of the game is you kind of exploring around the ship, just like the film. And then suddenly something happens and an intruder comes, okay? Then you randomly, you take away all the noise connected to that room and you randomly draw one of these intruders. If you're really unlucky to draw this, then the Queen might come out, and the Queen can come out as the first intruder. A few things trigger this, a few things happen from this. The first really important one is all players now need to decide on what objective they are going to take. So you don't have to decide on what you're going to do for the game to meet your objective until the first intruder comes, comes onto the board. Obviously the Queen is extremely hard. It's going to do intruder attacks. The science is probably not geared up to defeat the intruder. It's got some really cool mechanics on how to defeat aliens. All the mechanics in the game are really, really cool. The only negative I would say about it, and you've got to have a specific game group, and I would definitely say this up front to the game group when playing this game, is once the intruders have come out, if you get killed, and you can take, basically if you take your 4th serious wound, or 3rd serious wound, then you are actually killed and you're taken out of the game. There is a mechanism in the game where you can start to play as the intruders, but that just makes it a lot harder for the players. So it could be the case that you're an hour and a half into the game, you get taken out, yet there's another half an hour to an hour left of the game, in which case you're not playing it. Now you can watch to see what kind of goes on, especially if you're interested in that. It is quite a cool game to watch. But you are talking about a 3-hour game, okay, for Nemesis, I would say, on average. For 4 players, I would say that's 3 to 4 hours. If you've got 2 players, that can reduce it quite a bit. But you can't go to sleep to complete the objective until you get to your round 8. So you start on 15. Until you get to round 8, you can't go to sleep. But once you're in there, you can go to sleep. And effectively, as long as no intruders there, then you've triggered the end game. Okay, if you're both asleep, you trigger the end game, and then you see where you're going. You're seeing if the ship is actually going or gets blown up by the engines. If 2 of them are broken, it blows up. There, you are breaking the rooms. So a lot of these will be this, which means it's a broken room. You've got to be careful of that because it is limited. If 8 rooms get broken, the ship blows up. If 8 fire rooms go on fire, then it blows up. So there are lots of ways to lose the game. It is tough. It is tough, especially when it's played at its best, which I reckon is semi-co-op. To seed that doubt in people's heads is awesome. It's good fun. You can find out intruder weaknesses by inspecting. So there is the lab. There's one of the rooms. Let me see which one it is. There we go. So we've got the lab where you can analyze one object. So you can carry a heavy object in one of your hands, like a carcass of an intruder, carcass of a person, and then you can use the lab to analyze it, and then you can find out intruder carcass weakness, which is a weakness for the thingy, or character corpse. If you analyze that, you can get an intruder weakness for that, or an egg. You can pick up eggs, and yes, it has this 100% mechanic where there are larvae which hatch into face huggers. So you have face huggers in this, and then you've got creepers, which are adolescents. Then you've got adults with different sculpts. The sculpts are really cool in this. All adds to the immersion of the game. Then you've got the Queen as well. Again, this was a Kickstarter, which came with loads of stretch goals and additional kind of like a story mode and another faction of aliens, more characters, a different way to play the game. Really, really cool. This is my... With the exception of ISS Vanguard and my number 1 game, I would say this is probably the most thematic board game. This has got to be right up there with probably the most thematic board game I own, other than Star Wars Rebellion. I would say that's, again, really thematic, based to Star Wars. But this is absolutely seeping in Alien, the first movie. It really does fit. It's got an evacuation, what call it, airlock. It's got an airlock system, so you can actually get an intruder like the Queen in the airlock, and you can access it, and you fly her out into space. Amazing! It's got a nest. It's got all of the tropes you to imagine from it, and that seeding doubt of, are you actually playing with me or are you corporate? Okay, just like the film. I love this game, and it's very popular as well amongst the board game group. It is a bit of a longer game. You'll see this kind of common theme with a lot of the games I've got in my top 15. It is a long game. It's got lots of miniatures, but it's got so much theme. I love Nemesis, and that is my number 7 board game of all time in my collection. Nemesis by Awaken Realms. Okay, my number 6 board games of all time in my collection. It's Terraforming Mars by Stronghold Games. This is an absolute classic. Being a science teacher, especially physics, this has got a special place in my heart and my collection because it's seeped in that science about terraforming Mars, about making it habitable with lots of different events, constructions, technologies as a engine builder. Awesome it is. It's such a good game. You effectively have a huge deck of cards to grab from, but you've got to make lots of decisions. How do you want to handle terraforming Mars? You're kind of working all together to terraform Mars, increasing the oxygen levels to 14%, increasing the temperature from -30 to +8 degrees, and laying 9 oceans on the board. So that is how you terraform Mars, and that's triggers the end game. You can get different milestones and awards through the game, which helps you build up extra points and money. You've got different resources in the game, so you have your money, your income, if you like, linked to your terraforming rating, which starts at 20, and then you increase it as you start to terraform Mars. So by playing, typically planting forests will increase the oxygen level. By placing down oceans gives you it, or by increasing temperature, all of that increases your terraforming rating, which directly increases your income. And then you go on to buildings. So you've got building facilities. You've got titanium. What's this? Steel. And then you've got titanium, which is really good for space events and higher things. And these resources give you discounts on purchasing and playing the cards. You've got your plants, which enable you to build these. Okay, if you can get 8 plants into your store, you can build a forest. You've got energy, enabling you to do stuff, and then that energy excess energy gets taken over to heat, which helps to heat up the planet. So you've got all of these tying in resources all playing off each other, as well as these. You've got blue cards, which are continuous of things that are happening to you. You're getting these little tags, and multiple tags might give you more terraforming rating, or more whatever. There is so many possibilities in this game. You increase your rating of value, which basically, when the income stage, gives you those extra plants or whatever it might be. But there's, like, for example, designed micronisms needs a max of -14 degrees C. So you can only play it up to this point. Once it gets warmer than that, you can't play this card anymore. Okay. What other ones have we got? This one, Lightning Harvest. You can only play this if you've already got 3 science tags already out on your board. This needs to be -20, so you have to be at least here, or warmer, -20 or warmer to play the card. 3 oceans must be on the board, not necessarily that you've put on. You'll notice that you don't own the ocean tiles, but you do own city tiles and forest tiles. So this is end game scoring. Is how many of these forests you've got, and how much of these cities with forests around them you've got. All of these comes from more victory points at the end of the game. So you're playing through, trying to terraform Mars all together. In the multiplayer game, you basically just keep going until you've terraformed Mars, and then you do your point score at the end. It's a really nice engine building game using card draft, not drafting as such, but card building, deck building kind of board game. The solo mode, it's got a built-in solo mode, which is like a timed. You've got to terraform Mars in 14 turns. That plays really nice too. I really enjoy the solo version of this, just because of all the science and all the different things you can do to terraform Mars. Some of the cards don't work in solo, but it's fine. You don't have to buy them. You've got to make decisions in your turn. So you're drawing cards at the start of your turn, and then you're going, do I want them? Do I not want them? If I want them, I've got to pay for them. Okay, I've got to pay the money for them. So you're making those decisions all the time, of whether you want the money to place out those advancements and technologies, or do you want to spend the money to actually get those cards into your hand ready to be played maybe the next turn. Really great decisions to be made. The only negative to this one, you could argue, is player interaction. There's not a whole deal. There are some cards which are direct player interaction, but in the most part, you're not really. You're doing your own thing, and you're building your own engine. But if you're okay with that, it's a great game. It's a fantastic game by Stronghold Games. As you're trying to balance what you do with your resources, the order you do things in. Are you going to save up those resources because they carry through? Okay, they carry through to the following round, so you can start to build up resources and then just go for a really massive round where you're bang, 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 increasing your terraforming rating, tenfold and everything else. So you could really make a difference. You got to make those decisions. And what your opponents doing? Are they going to take certain actions which will affect you? Will they take spots that you need? Because you get little bonuses by placing things on certain spots. There are specific spaces for different things. Events will happen. So you've got these special tiles which do different things and have special rules with them. Some really, really cool stuff in this game. Things like, you can direct an asteroid into Mars to increase the temperature. Really, really cool. I love this game. I really love this game. I love the theme. I really love the theme. And I love these cards and what they do to it and the different ways. And if you take notice of that, it makes the game so much more richer than just what's this enabling me to do to get the points, to do this to get the points. If you look into the science and think about what you're doing, it's really cool. It's really cool. So from plants to animals, to events, to technologies, to buildings, whatever it might be. I really like this. I like the theme. I like the mechanics of the game. I just really, really enjoy Terraforming Mars. It's my number 6 game of all time, and it's this tips. I mean, I've got Wingspan, which is another engine builder type game, and I really like Wingspan. I really like Wingspan. Very close to making it on the list. But for me, because of the theme, I would say Terraforming Mars tips it for me. My number 6. Okay, my number 5 game of all time in my collection is, I guess, a slightly controversial one. Okay, that's Mythic Games' Time of Legends, Joan of Arc. So, God, the scope of this would have been my number 1 game if it was ever taken to the heights we were expecting it to. This was the first game that Mythic Games on their own produced and delivered. There were problems with it. I need to say this in the outset. There were legal problems which meant that they couldn't carry on the kind of franchise, I guess, or the game system of Time of Legends to different eras. This was something so exciting to do. So, what Time of Legends Joan of Arc is a scenario-driven tactical skirmish game, I guess, where all the scenarios are very different, based on the time of Joan of Arc, with not necessarily just Joan of Arc, lots of different battles and sieges. And what you can see behind me here is my Joan of Arc stuff. So I've got literally a cabinet of all the Joan of Arc stuff, from castles to villages to armies to mythical creatures. So this works on a historical, I guess, settings and scenarios to mythical scenarios, with the angels and demons that Joan of Arc was claiming to have seen and experienced. The scenario, the base rule set of this game is absolutely fantastic. It feels like a tabletop miniatures game, but in a board game setting. I love this game in that sense. The actual core mechanics of the game are really, really cool. Then you add into that all the specific scenario thing, and it makes it really rich. All the scenario rules, what you're doing for each battle. Now, the biggest negative with this game is setup time. The setup time, when you've got them all in boxes, it was taking like an hour to set up a game. And a game could take, the first time you play a scenario, if you're not really sure or au fait with which tactics are best for it, you can literally wipe the board and complete your objective in a matter of 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So suddenly you spent an hour setting up a board game, you spend 30 minutes playing it, and then you spend another half an hour tearing it down, which is ridiculous. But the way it's supposed to be played is you play the scenario once, then you switch sides, and you learn the tactics which are involved in it. This is what I love about this game. The tactical richness of this game is absolutely unparalleled. It's so good, which is why it's in my number 5. The miniatures, the scale, I love this game. I love this game for all of those reasons. Now I've got everything on the back. It now takes me 15 minutes to set up a scenario, so I've dramatically reduced the time taken for that. I've got the deluxe storage box. I've got literally everything for Joan of Arc. So it's a beautiful game, and I mean, all you got to do, for example, is look at this dragon to see how cool this miniature is. And there is, just to put it in perspective, there is Joan of Arc at 15mm equivalence scale. It's such a rich game. It's a real enjoyable game. Loads of scenarios available in the game. Obviously, if you've got the full, it is a Kickstarter. It is no longer available. You need to get it second hand. I mean, this list is my favourite games that I own. So please do bear that in mind. I'm not saying this is not a suggestion of which games you should go out and buy, but you could probably find secondhand versions of this because people got rid of it. There were problems with the rules. So when it first came out, it needed a lot of FAQ, and they needed, and they're still, to be honest, they have not balanced some of certainly the stretch goal scenarios. They don't feel completely balanced. They feel fun, but not necessarily completely balanced. But again, I would say the balance is in replaying those scenarios. Once you get to learn different tactics of completing that scenario, and that's how they've managed to bring about so much diverse tactics into a board game, not a tabletop miniatures game, because obviously we can expect a tabletop miniatures games to have lots of different tactics. That's the point of it. But they've done that in this game. It's absolutely superb. The miniatures are awesome. Absolute, for the scale of the miniatures, they are superb. A real joy to paint. There's just a lot of them. And I really enjoy this game. Now, yes, I mean, this is my personal list. So Mythic Games I've gone through 2 of theirs already. So you're seeing a theme here, but that's personally, I got a little bit of a personal investment into them as well, as I was an ambassador for Mythic Games for a little while as well. So I guess you can take that as you will. But I didn't have to lie when I was demoing these games about how good they are. They sold themselves. They were absolutely fantastic. Now, obviously, there are problems at Mythic Games at the moment. So, you know, you have to take that with a pinch of salt, as I say. It depends on, you can't get this. It's not being produced by anyone. So you're going to have to get this on the second market. There's not going to be a reprint or anything like that. So do bear that in mind as I'm going through this. But for me, this is one of my favourite games. Easily one of my favourite games. I've played a ton of it. I've not played many of the Teutonic Knights scenarios, which is the latest expansion that came out. But I've played the heck out of all the rest of it. Siege is so cool. I mean, actually doing a siege with the castle, all the miniatures, it looks absolutely awesome. The mechanics work so well. I really love the mechanics of this game. It is my number 5 game of all time, and that's Time of Legends, Joan of Arc by Mythic Games. Okay, now we move on to my number 4 game of all time in my collection, which is Marvel Champions, the card game by Fantasy Flight Games. So this overtook Lord of the Rings, the card game. Now, Lord of the Rings card game is awesome, but this just improves things quite substantially in some different areas, which I'll talk about. Now, yes, here's Marvel, so I guess you need to like Marvel in the first instance. But the amount of content they've got now for this game is so good, and I've got a decent amount. So I've got this carry case for the heroes, and then I've got the core box now full of the villains and the scenarios. And the way it works is it's deck construction, but it can be, you can keep it really quite simple in terms of deck construction, or you can go into more depth. I really like that. I think it makes it more approachable to players rather than Lord of the Rings card game, which was more actually deck construction, which people do love, obviously. Then creating the villain deck is awesome. You just literally grab a villain. You grab some modules, if you like, is the best way to think of it. They've got their own decks that go into the villain deck, and then you get modules. And you chuck those modules in, so you can mix it up how you want. They have a particular scenario that they've got that you're going to be trying to attempt. And then you play with 1 to 4 players against that. It's a card game. You use cards for either resources or to actually play them. They've got events, you've got allies, you've got equipment. Each character has a unique flavor with their 15 cards that they get as standard. Okay, so they have their own 15 cards, and then you start to build in an aspect like leadership or aggression or defense, and then you chuck one of those in, and then you chuck some just generic basic cards in as well. And then from that, you've created your character. Then you've got health, you've got your alter ego, and then your hero. And you can flip between that once per round. Okay, they do different things. And then effectively, you can thwart the opponent's plans. They're trying to scheme, but they're also trying to attack you. You win the game typically by taking out your opponent. Okay, so they have a certain health, and they'll go through stages. So on normal mode, you'll go through stage 1 and stage 2 of your opponent, of your villain, but you can go on hard mode, and you can go through 2 and 3, stage 2 and 3. There's going to be the encounter deck, which is going to do lots of different things, and then as you go through the game, you're trying to manage the villains, the minions that might be on the board, different things that might be happening. Certainly with the scheme, so the main scheme, you've got side schemes going on, it's like side missions, side things that happen. It's so cool what they've done in this game. It feels like a comic. It feels like a comic, and like stories from a comic. You're using your characters, and yeah, if you play, I'd recommend. Well, I've played it solo, single character. I've played it solo with 2 characters. It's a fantastic solo game. One of the best out there. And as you get more and more, also what I really appreciate is you get the core box, and you've got plenty of content that you can just play the game. You don't need to buy anything else. You can play up to 4 players, and you can just play the game. Okay, a little bit limited with your deck construction, of course, but it still has that aspect as well. And then you can just start to buy in packs as you see fit. The characters you really like to play, the settings and the villains that you might like. So, for example, we got Thanos, we got Red Skull, we've got Spider Foes, we've got Guardians of the Galaxy, and we've got X-Men. So we've got. So I've bought into the these kind of like campaigns, because this is the bit I really love about this game, and you've kind of played through a comic effectively as you play the different villains, and you work your way through the different villains. So you buy one of these expansion packs, the main expansion packs, and you get 2 characters with their decks and new cards, and then you get typically 3 or 4 villains with their own little modules as well. So you can start to really mix things up and make your own stories. So cool, so cool. This is a very much one of the top games of many people's lists for a good reason. Lord of the Rings, as I say, absolute fantastic game, but just can be a bit too complex is what I would say, whereas this simplifies, streamlines everything, and makes it so it's really accessible and something you can literally just pick up, chuck together a deck, and you can literally just chuck together a deck. You can even just use the deck that's already given with the character pack. So this is Captain America's. I've not changed this. This is exactly the same with leadership as the aspect, and it's a great solo character to play. And, you know, I played against Red Skull the other night. I was just so thematic. It was awesome. Load of Hydra out there, Hydra soldiers. Really good fun. A deck construction game, but with decent amount of theme in there. You're feeling the character. They feel unique because of those 15 unique cards. Again, something that Lord of the Rings doesn't have. So you could argue Lord of the Rings, you have to be the person making it thematic. Or else you could literally just grab cards that aren't so thematic in that game. So there is a bit of that. Whereas this, it feels really thematic to the characters and everything else. I really like Marvel Champions, and I think it's one that you can mix and match the cards. It's an LCG, so you know what cards are coming in it. It's not booster packs or anything like that. It's co-op as well. It's not competitive. It's a co-op game, which is another really a really important part about this game, which I love, which makes it really good as a solo game. The fact that it is a co-op game. That's Marvel Champions, the card game by Fantasy Flight Games, my fourth best game of all time. Okay, now on to the number 3 favourite game of all time in my collection, and that's Marvel United. Here I've got X-Men version. I do have some of the other content as well, most of it, to be honest, except for the stretch goal, the big stretch goal box for the original campaign. Now, I've put this game so high because of several reasons. For me personally, it's the main game that I play with my son and my daughter sometimes as well. That means that it's obviously going to be higher for a specific reason. I love the chibi miniatures. They're so cool, and the game is such a nice game. It's relatively simple. You've got loads of villains, especially if you get the stretch goals and expansions and everything else. You've got loads of different hero types. It works off a deck of cards and basically 3 actions. That's what you've got. You've got move, you've got punch, and you've got heroic action. And then you've got wilds as well. But you've got all of these threats which are around the board. You've got different locations, and especially if you get more expansions, you get more of those. The villains have a specific win condition. And then as a heroes, you're typically trying to take down the villain, but there might even be specific different alternative wins objectives as well. You've usually got these 3 objectives, which is defeating the thugs, rescuing civilians, or clearing the threat cards, and then you basically try to complete 2 of those objectives, and then you can start actually damaging and taking out the villain. There's some special rules which are very simple. Again, everything's very straightforward, and that's why I'm able to play with my son, who's only 6 years old. And it's a really popular game in the family. I love painting these miniatures. I've painted almost all of the miniatures from all of my collection of Marvel United. It's probably the game that I've painted the most miniatures for. I'm just looking at Joan of Arc. That could be certainly up there as well as Solomon Kane. But yeah, this game, I really, really enjoy this game. It's great solo. It works really well with multiplayer. I've got the team ones. So I've got Team Blue and Team Gold for the X-Men expansions, and I've got a load of new stuff coming with the multiverse. So we've got the multiverse pledge coming, as well as some of the other expansions I hadn't got yet, including the Sinister Six and loads of extra stuff as well. So the sheer amount of content of this game makes it really rich and really different each time I play. We can use different combos of characters. Again, my son's really into Marvel, so knowing the characters and playing with them, he actually really quite likes playing the villain, so you can actually play the villain in this game as well, and he quite likes doing that. And yeah, every place I've taken it, it's always been a hit. It's really easy to teach the game, that really helps. It plays relatively fast, so it has a lot of positives for how much you can play this game, and I've played this game a ton, and yeah, really, really enjoy this. I think this is a fantastic game that gets played a lot in the family, and that's why this is so high up. I've got to take that into account because that's my personal preference. I know it's a very popular system as well, so I'm not surprised. And you basically play cards, and it's got a really nice storyline. And you do bring about stories. They're not super thematic, if I'm being completely honest. I wouldn't say they were super thematic, but I would say they've nailed the kind of the characteristics of the villains and the heroes well enough with how simple the rule set is. So that's cool. And you're trying to fight out, and you get to these climax situations when you're trying to defeat the villain, and they're really starting to ramp things up. So things can literally get out of control very easily, which makes it quite a tense gameplay. It's really cool for that. And you've got your storyline, which is kind of like the process you've gone through throughout the game. Really nice game. It's not one which, I mean, I'm massive into my narrative games. They're my favourite type board games. However, this one, just for its mechanics, the miniatures, and how much I can get this to the table, means that this is really high up and makes it my third game of all time. Favourite game of all time. Marvel United by Simon and Spin Master Games. Okay, so my second favourite game of all time in my collection is Blood Rage by Simon Games. This is such a quality game. I have played it a ton. It's kind of like a favourite. It's a evergreen game that just keeps giving and giving and giving. Now I've got Rising Sun and I've got Ankh, so I've got the trilogy. I've just got the base games of all of them, and I haven't found it a problem. I don't need the expansions for any of them. You can see how worn this box is and how much this has been played. You're drafting cards, you're taking on a kind of theme, is the best way to think of it, with your Viking clan. You all start exactly the same, and it's in the cards which all your unique clan comes about. You might be trying a Loki version, which is obviously being tricky and basically trying to get your characters to be killed off and gaining glory from that, glory being victory points. You might go down Tyr or Odin's or Frigga's or all of the. You got different routes and different ways they work. You'll be getting monsters and drafting those in through cards, and you can have 2 of those. And you're making these choices of what you want to do, and you're using rage as your resource. As you use the rage, you've got to try and think about this, because certainly some Loki cards might steal rage from you, in which case you might run out and you're out for the round. And you're playing rounds trying to control areas. It's a nice, small, concise map. It's very clear to understand. Again, this doesn't take too long to teach. The only thing you've got to kind of really just explain in detail is kind of the different cards and why you might want to do them. So you've got the green quest cards, which are effectively controlling areas where victory points at the end of the age. There's 3 ages in the game. You've got red battle cards. You've got black upgrade cards, which go around on your board. And you've only got a certain amount of rage that you can use in a turn. As the game goes on, you're going to pick up more and more rage, but then things are going to cost more as you go on to more powerful cards in the second and third age. This is such a nice game. It feels thematic. You feel like you are building your deck. You're trying to build your deck, but people might see what you're doing and then draft those cards just to stop you from running away with the win. Then you've got Yggdrasil right in the middle, which is heavily fought after because it's worth so much. As you pillage the different areas, you start to increase your stats. And if you can increase your stats high enough, you can have more people on the board and everything else. It's got some fantastic mechanics going on all the way through the game. It has high amounts of player interaction, of course. That's huge in it, which is fantastic. It's got beautiful miniatures. It's got fantastic game mechanics. It's got drafting. It's got area control, resource management. You name it, it's everything. You got Valhalla, which is a whole other mechanic which is going on as well. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I love Blood Rage. I think it's high on many people's lists. It's probably one of Simon's best games. Yes, we've got Zombicide, and I do actually have Zombicide Black Plague, which I believe is the best Zombicide, but that didn't make my top 15 list. Personally, but that could certainly make people's top lists as well. But yeah, Blood Rage. After playing Rising Sun and Ark's how I would order those the three trilogy is 100% Blood Rage in number 1. I would go Ark number 2. I really like Ark. I like the things it does, and then Rising Sun third. Even though Japanese feudal Japanese kind of lore and mythology is my favourite, Viking is very close behind that. So I think Blood Rage is an absolutely amazing game. It's always very popular when I bring it out. New people who have never played it before play it and go, oh, that's really cool, but I want to play it again because now I know what the different routes are that you can draft. I reckon I could do better next time. You get that kind of element going on. Ragnarok's happening each age, so you might get characters destroyed, but that's glory. So you've got to decide what tactics you want to run by. A beautiful game made by Eric Lang, who has made some fantastic games in the past, mostly for Simon, of course. Just love this game. That's Blood Rage, my second favourite game of all time in my collection, and that is Blood Rage by Simon Games. So now we have come to it. My favourite game of all time, Solomon Kane by Mythic Games. This is one of the expansions here. Man, this game. As I've mentioned in a few of these top 15 games, I love narrative games. I love miniature games. This Solomon Kane is such a good. It's got such good mechanics. It's got amazing stories. It feels like I don't know. It feels like what Dungeons and Dragons should be. All based on Robert E. Howard's short stories featuring Solomon Kane the Puritan. You've got such cool mechanics in this game. Number 1, you don't actually play as Solomon Kane. You play as virtues guiding Solomon Kane through the ethereal world. So you've got the real world and you've got the ethereal world. And you're trying to guide Solomon Kane through different paths and different ways, different tactics. There's talking, there's exploring, there's fighting, there's so much in this game. There's characters. You've got to think about your stats and managing them as your resources. I mean, this is a bit over the top, you could argue, certainly, in terms of table hogging space, but it's cool. So you've got strength, clarity, compassion, and danger, and you've got to manage these things because these can ultimately lose you the whole game. And then there are actually stories. You play through stories. So, for example, in the core box, you've got this bunch of stories. You've got like single act stories, like Rattle of Bones, and each act will typically have 10 chapters. You may not play every single chapter because you may do something in one of the chapters, the early chapters, which means you kind of progress on and you skip ahead, as it were. So you've got branching storylines depending on how you do, to give you different outcomes. So you could have a major defeat, you could have a major victory, you could have a minor victory, you could have a minor defeat. So you got all of this, and you got different outcomes to the stories, which it increases its replayability. Obviously, things and events are going to be the same, but there will be some differences. Each act is split into these different chapters, and the chapter can be a story chapter, which is effectively not using the board. You are effectively trying to light Solomon's path to make him realise what he needs to do to progress forward. There's loads of story. And then each scenario or each story will contain a deck of discovery cards. And in these discovery cards, what it does is it brings in new narratively rich rules, events, different things you can do. This is so cool. So you have your core game mechanics. You're rolling dice, which link to virtues. So things like faith, bravery, and then you've got things the opposite. So you've got fear, you've got compassion, and you've got pain. You've got all these different things going on with the dice, and these dice are going to be used to do different actions. You're going to have 8 cards that you play with. You don't upgrade these throughout the game, okay? You play with the same cards. However, you upgrade your virtues as a group. So typically you can play this in different ways. You would normally play with a virtue each, so 4 players going against the game. It is it is a co-op game by nature. However, they've also introduced darkness, so you can actually have a 5th player playing as darkness, and making it harder for the hero for the virtues. You can also play as Providence, which is the solo version virtue, who's like an all-encompassing virtue. And this is one I play the vast majority of the time. I think it feels really balanced playing as Providence. Perhaps you could argue slightly on the easier side for most of the stories, but things can go very wrong in these stories very quickly. But you're reading these stories and you're basically going through an actual story. It feels like you're playing an interactive book, okay, where you are in charge of where the route goes. It is a amazing experience. It's an amazing game. You're trying to think, what shall I do? How do I kind of tackle this situation? You've got an event deck, so you're going to be taking tests depending on what your virtues are. If the virtues are on the board, they might be giving you buffs. Well, they will be giving you buffs, and then you're drawing from these, and then it's random whether the additional happen, and then from that you're going to look onto here, and then you're going to read different cards which will have different outcomes. So all this branching narrative, it's so rich and it's so detailed, which makes this game my favourite game of all time. It has everything I would want in a board game. The miniatures are phenomenal. They are all sculpted bases, really detailed miniatures. I've painted all of the core set for this, and they're absolutely gorgeous. I'm playing through this one at the moment, America's The New World, and I've still got so much of the expansion still to play through. But when you consider that's just one of them, so that's a 1-act book, a Skull, Rattler Bones. But then you got the Blue Flame of Vengeance, which is the big 3-actor story that's in the core box. Then you got the Right Hand of Doom, Witchfinder General, Haunted Mountain. These are all using Solomon Kane, so you kind of get used to the character, what the stories are about as well. The Beast of Bordeaux, where you've got effectively a big beast. Skulls in the Stars. This is my favourite story that I've played yet. I have played this probably about 10 times with different groups and different player counts, with darkness and everything else, and it is such a cool story, and I really like playing it over and over and seeing what different options people choose. You can obviously let your new players just make some of the more decisions, as it were. Death's Black Riders and La Ogre. So that's just the core. Okay, so that's just the core. This is a Kickstarter game. I have to point this out. It's by Mythic Games again. So, with the trouble that Mythic Games have. However, Solomon Kane and the game system and the IP are now with Monolith. Okay, with Monolith Games, who are in a more healthy situation than Mythic. And speaking on a live stream, just done a few days ago, one of the community managers for Monolith have said that they are using this game system with a new IP, and that will be revealed soon. I mean, I'm in. I'm all in. I'm all in for that straight off the bat, because I absolutely adore this game system. I think it's such a genius. The writers of this are Nick Noitis for this one, but there was different people for the different ones. They've nailed it. I love this. People have talked about, perhaps moaned a little bit about some nuances with the rules and some certain parts. So there's, again, some errata linked to this, which doesn't help, but ignoring, putting that to aside, I don't really mind about that. Even if I play it with the unerrated rules or whatever, the cards, it still plays really, really nice. You might get that one time where you go, I don't quite understand how this works, and therefore you have to go to errata, or just make it cool, to be honest, and just let the game flow. But wow, this game, if you want a narrative experience with some really cool game mechanics, fantastic. I mean, if you're playing with multiple virtues, it's all about table talk. I mean, this is player interaction at its maximum, which is awesome. You're making those decisions. What should we do, guys? Each round, you're going to choose who's going to go first, second, third, and fourth. After each virtue's turn, the darkness is going to have a go, and then you've got this darkness cards, which is a timer. So you have a little darkness deck for each. For the scenarios, for the scene scenarios, which is when you play on the board with all the miniatures, you're going to have maybe 10 darkness cards, which means you've got 10 turns. There are some mitigations which can add turns to it, but ultimately you're going to turn this over, and then it's going to move all the characters and everything, and it's going to change what's going to happen, and especially the threat of the shadows. That's the overarching threat that's happening. You can use your virtues to defend against these ethereal threats, or you can just take make them engage, they disappear, but then you have to go through the event deck, so the event order, which is putting negative things onto your characters. It might be losing stats, it might be increasing danger, it may be taking cards away, or action cards, it might be taking dice away from your characters. It's got so many amazing mechanics in this game, which I absolutely love, and I think if you like narrative games, dungeon crawl, because it technically is a dungeon crawl, I guess, a narrative dungeon crawl. If those types of games are your jam, then you must try Solomon Kane by Monolith now, I guess. It is such an experience, and again, the people I've played this with are just like, oh my god, that is a fantastic experience of a game. Yes, it can take a bit of time. So, for example, that Rattle of Bones, you're probably looking to run through this with 4 players. You're probably looking at 3, probably 4 hours again, which is quite typical. And again, that might be something that's really, really bad for you, in which case, obviously, my list of favourite games won't tie in with what your favourite games are, of course. But if those big, epic, narrative games are your thing, this is so good. So good. And I know in this top 15, I have talked about 3 Mythic games, which are pretty much the ones they've released so far. But it's such a shame. It's so disappointing. It's such a shame with what's happening over at Mythic Games, because they know how to make board games, and really, really, in my opinion, really amazing board games. Miniature board games, typically, most of all. How the Last Saga, I mean, that's such an amazing game. And that's when I played it in its first iteration. Is that going to come out? We don't know. It may not ever exist, which will be such a travesty. But Solomon Kane, for me, wow, they nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. So I'm kind of hoping, and I'm putting a completely guess estimation here, that the new IP for this game system could be Conan. Because if I look at Monolith, we're really talking about Conan now. And that could probably work with the idea of your gods to influence. It needs to have that mechanic. I mean, obviously, having DC or Batman would be amazing for the stories and of how it would work. I just don't know how virtues would work, or influences would work with that. So I don't know. It could be something completely different. But I'm very much looking forward to seeing what Monolith do with that, with this game system. All the miniatures. I mean, again, it is expensive. It's a big kickstart. It's a big box. There's lots of boxes. It's heavy. It's a heavy game in terms of not so much on the rules, but in terms of time. And if you like me, you really want them painted miniatures, that's another time aspect. But again, if you enjoy painted miniatures, that could be very much a plus with these miniatures, because they are absolutely gorgeous. Just from the standard village people are just amazing sculpts, amazing miniatures, and the bigger ones like the virtues, just gorgeous. So I can't say praises enough for Solomon Kane by Mythic Games. I think, it's just so good. I mean, even the core box has got a fantastic insert. Everything's been compressed into 2 boxes, which I know is quite the normal thing with these big games. The map tiles are just gorgeous. They're really clear. I really can't praise this game enough. It's lovely. It's a lovely game. There's hard decisions to make in every story. Each story is rich. I mean, it's written in Old English, a lot of it, so some of it might be like, what you on about? But that's the theme. That's the thing. That's the whole point of the theme. And as Solomon Kane walks across the world to different nations, different things are happening. I mean, we've got one which talks with vampires. You've got one that goes to the Congo. This one in America. So if you've ever, that's the game. That's the book. Read The Crucible with the Witches of Salem. The first story in this expansion is all about that. It's so cool. And then they tie things in as well, which is really clever. So if you've played the core box, you'll pick up some of the things that will go on in some of the expansions. It's really cool. I've got so much more of this to play. But I keep replaying a lot of the core stories because I'm playing with new players, and just trying to share the experience of this game. So, my favourite game of all time, Solomon Kane by Mythic Games. Okay, so I just wanted to point out at the end of this video, so that was my top 15 games of all time. Now, they're the ones that I own. And basically, if I've really enjoyed a game, I'll buy it, and then it's in my collection. There are going to be games that I haven't played, okay? One of the ones I really want to play, which I'm sure I'm going to love, is Feast for Odin. I really want to play Feast for Odin. I'm sure I will get that soon. I've got things like Spirit Island, which narrowly missed the list. And I've got new Kickstarters coming in all the time. These are just 2 examples. Nova Aetus Renaissance. I've already said how much I love miniature games and adventure games. I've played literally the first mission, and a little rest phase, and it was really nice. I really liked the game. I think this could be well up there. That's Ludus Magnus Studios again, same as Black Rose Wars, which is another one of my favourite. Monolith Games, Batman, Gotham City Chronicles was my favourite. Was on the list of the 15, and Solomon Kane, which Monolith now has, is my favourite game of all time. Mythic Battle Pantheon is a really, really cool game too, and I just haven't played these things enough to put them on the list, of course. I've got other Kickstarters coming in in the next few years. I'm sure the list is going to change because of those. Some of the games, it seems like games that are coming out more and more frequently are just becoming better and better and better. If especially those big miniature games, adventure campaign games. I've got Primal the Awakening coming. I'm really looking forward to that, like a boss battler. I had Kingdom Death Monster. I sold it. I liked it. I really liked it. And then other games overtook it. I was like, I'm getting as much enjoyment, but out of a smaller experience. So I like that. I've got Jaws the Lion, Gloomhaven, Jaws the Lion. I've played Gloomhaven. About 8 missions into that. Really like the car mechanic, but there's something about that game which means I don't keep going back to it. Whereas a lot of the other games on that 15, a lot of the games on that, well, all of the games on that list of 15, I keep going back to those games regularly and want to be playing it more. This, I think, is going to be well up there, and I'm getting the expansions in the next week. This is so cool. I'm going to be playing this a ton, and the miniatures in both of these, whew, especially this, and especially, oh god, the miniatures are getting crazy for board games. But I got, like I say, Primal Awakening. I'm really looking forward to that. I've got the one game I haven't played, which is very high on a lot of people's lists. Talk about adventure games, not miniatures, but adventure games, is Too Many Bones. But I've got the Elder Scrolls version of that coming through. I've got Skyrim, the adventure game. It's brilliant. I've got The Witcher, the Old World. It's really, really good too. I haven't quite played enough of Witcher. Really, really like it though. I think it's a fantastic game. And with the Harakiri I've got coming. As I said, if Hell Last Tiger comes out, that'd be fantastic. Amongst many other different ones as well. So I'm sure this list will change. But I just wanted to put it out there. My first list, my first top anything list. To be honest, it's not really why I made the channel. The channel was to showcase painting and solo rule set. And I'm fully aware that this was not a top solo games that I have. But a lot of the games on that 15 were solo. Blood Rage, no. But Solomon Kane, I played that mostly solo. Marvel Champions, Marvel United, Batman City Chronicles, and Imperial Assault I use with fan-made solo modes, and I played those quite a lot with those. I can't remember what else I put on the list now. But yeah, so ISS Vanguard, do that solo predominantly. Joan of Arc, not so much. There are some solo scenarios, and I've played it solo, and it's good. But it really Joan of Arc shines when you've got 2 players. So many of these games I love solo, and I just wanted to put out what I really enjoy. What are my favourite games now that the channel's been out for a while. So if this is something that you've enjoyed and you want to find out more about what other themes I like or whatever it might be, I could always do a top 10 list of miniatures. What are my favourite miniatures in board games? Of course, I've got the whole tabletop miniatures games. That's the other side. So board games is where my first love of the hobby was. But that led me to tabletop miniatures games. And I love tabletop miniature games as well and play them often. So I've got multiple versions of those. So I could do lists linked to those or whatever it might be. So if you've enjoyed this content, please do subscribe, and please do comment. I mean, the comments are the most important thing to me. Just that community. I will be doing some more live stream painting. Hopefully some more live stream playing of some of the games. Just this one video will have taken me hours and hours to produce and put onto YouTube. Whereas a live stream takes no prep, and it's literally just the time we're doing it. I know that the production quality isn't anywhere near as good. However, at my stage of what my resources are and the time I have, these videos do take a long time. So, if people aren't too fussed about it, then, it does make sense to do more of this kind of content on the channel. I can certainly stick to the things which I made the channel for. Anyway, I just wanted to point out the new things coming through, which could be slightly jumping into that list 100%. But, these two in particular, really, really enjoying them at the moment. And that's literally just the initial thoughts of those. So that was my top 15 favourite board games of all time that I own. I mean, I must admit, these are of the ones I own. And as I said, I haven't played every game. I definitely haven't played every game. I've not played Oathsworn, for example. I might absolutely love Oathsworn. I haven't played Too Many Bones. I've mentioned that one already. There are so many games that I haven't played that are on top of many people's lists. And I'm sure I would love them. But for the ones that I've played, the ones that I own, that is my list. Obviously, I really enjoy miniatures. I really enjoy story and adventure. So they tend to all go up high on my list, which is what you've seen. You could argue Blood Rage is the odd one out, but it's just such a cool game that that's why that is up there. Anyway, so until next time, keep enjoying this amazing hobby. Let me know what games you love. What are your favourite games? Do you have similar interests that I have in terms of what your favourite games are? What other things do you really enjoy about the games I've mentioned on this list? And while you're doing that, just enjoy the hobby, keep gaming, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.